Alright, so last month we got a brand new film in the Star Wars franchise, The Mandalorian and Grogu. I spent the whole last month and a half watching through this entire franchise, and today I'm going to give you the 12 film ranking of Star Wars. Before I dive in, if you would, subscribe to the like button, hit the bell. Most important part in a big ranking like this, tell me your ranking down below in the comment section. I'd love to know all that and more. Just so we're clear, I watched this franchise for the first time when I was 13 in 2019, when right before The Rise of Skywalker was going to come out. And I was not a fan of the franchise back then. There was only 2 movies that I actually enjoyed. Now on rewatch, there are more movies that I enjoyed than I didn't enjoy. But I just want to be very clear that this is going to be a controversial ranking. This is my personal opinion. I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. But this is just my personal opinion as someone who's not the biggest fan of Star Wars. With that said, number 12, pretty easily for me, is The Mandalorian and Grogu. I hated this movie. I actually despised this movie with all of my being. The Mandalorian and Grogu's bad. It's really bad. Despite a few decent enough action sequences, despite maybe a few decent shots here and there throughout the movie, despite the score being really good, that's it. Like, this movie is absolute dog poop. It's really bad. The film is a 2-hour episode of The Mandalorian, and as someone who's not the biggest fan of The Mandalorian show, I love season 2, but I'm not the biggest fan of seasons 1 or 3, especially 3. I think we should just let these characters die at this point. There's really nothing interesting left for these characters, especially considering this movie didn't even go into a character arc for either of them. The only character arc we dive into in this entire film is Rada the Hutt not being like Jabba and being his own man, which has just become the biggest meme on Twitter right now. And then Din Djarin getting his mask removed again. And, oh boy, isn't that a really new and unique character arc? And then you got Grogu, he's using the Force, he could be a really interesting character, but they play him for, oh, he's the cute little boy, and he picks up Mando, and, oh, look, he's picking up Mando with the Force and moving him against the wall. Isn't this so funny? Well, the crowd thinks so, because all they're doing is laughing at Mando, or at Grogu's dumb little, oh, look, he's so cute. It's almost like, and I didn't come up with this original idea, I heard it on Film Stokes, Chris from Film Stokes, go check out his channel, his Star Wars review, or his review of this movie, and he said that it's almost like if Marvel kept up the Baby Groot thing, which is so true, because imagine how frustrated we all would be if they kept up the Baby Groot thing. Imagine how unfunny that would be, uncute that would be all this time later. And they're doing it with Grogu, and it's just so repetitive and stupid. So no character arcs, a few decent action sequences, some very bad shots in the movie. I know I said there was a few, and there are a few, but then you get the shot on the Rebel base with Rada the Hutt, and it just looks like poop from a butt. It's so frustrating, because it's a film based on a TV show that, number one, could have just easily been thrown on Disney Plus, and it should have easily been thrown on Disney Plus, but I ended up paying $15 a ticket to go see it in IMAX when it doesn't do anything interesting with the characters, it doesn't have anything interesting at all, and it's boring. I hated this movie. Number 11, we got Solo, A Star Wars Story. Now, to be very clear, I gave The Mandalorian and Grogu 1.5 stars. Solo, and then my number 10 and my number 9 are all 3 stars. Solo, I think, is just a fun enough adventure. It almost kind of reminds me of Star Wars for kids at a certain point, where, like, just the vibe of this movie feels so different from Star Wars. You're following Solo, and he's making all these jokes, and the dialogue isn't all that good, but I think the adventure enough was fun. I think Alden Ehrenreich, I think I said his last name right, is actually really fun as Han Solo, definitely captures the magic of that character. It takes a minute for you to be like full on invested in his character because you're so used to Harrison Ford playing him. But I think that he does a good job capturing the spirit of that character. And overall, the cast here is really stacked. You got Donald Glover playing Lando. You got Paul Bettany here as the villain, who I actually think is a very compelling villain. And I wish we got more of his side. And you got Woody Harrelson thrown in here as well. So overall, it's just a really good cast. And Emilia Clarke, who you can't forget. Emilia Clarke is awesome. But, like I said, it's just a genuinely fun adventure. It's got plenty of action. It's got plenty of comedy. It's got all the things that you want to be entertained for 2 hours. I think the train sequence is the standout here. There was some really good Star Wars action. A couple sequences look really good, like the sequence where they're flying away from the monster. Like, that sequence looked really cool. So, overall, like, this is a film that's very easy a watch for me. I do think, like, on the opposite end, I know I just said there are some shots that look really good, but there are also some shots where the lighting in this film is just honestly quite terrible, which is very unfortunate because, like, Star Wars is supposed to be bright and vibrant, and this movie had some very dark shots. I also feel like we needed a little bit more for this movie. A lot of people say it should have been a TV show, and while I disagree with that, I think we should have either gotten a sequel or a continuation TV show, because I want to know more about this group of thieves and criminals led by Darth Maul. I want to know more about that. It left on an interesting spot, and the movie it didn't really expand on that. And the third act, personally, for me, was a little bit underwhelming. You have great stuff with Paul Bettany's character in there, but after that, you get, like, some betrayals, and how it's just resolved is not Harrison Ford, but Han Solo just pulls out his blaster and shoots a dude, and the movie's over. So it was a little bit underwhelming for me, but overall, like, it's just a fun adventure. It's a 2 hour long, like, non-stop action paced film that I had fun with. One more thing before I dive on to my next one, like the L2 droid, like, what's happening there? Why do we all of a sudden have a plot about, like, robots not being treated, droids not being treated as fairly as humans, and, like, it's just so random. We're just having a really good time hanging out with Lando, and then here comes in this droid, like, robot revolution, and it's like, what are we doing here? And, like, my least favorite character in all of Star Wars, and, like, I was so happy when she bit the dust, because, like, so weird. And then we're having, like, this conversation, like, oh, Lando has a crush on me, but I don't like him. It's just weird. It's just in poor taste, and it's not funny, and it's not interesting in the slightest, and it definitely took away from the movie. But again, Solo, very fun adventure. Number 10, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. This is quite a frustrating one for me, because I think the first hour or so of this movie is actually really fun. It's filled to the brim with a ton of awesome action sequences. You got the stuff on the planet where you're fighting the droids and all that. You got the stuff with, like, Jar Jar Binks, which I know a lot of people hate. He does get unbearable from time to time, but he's always a character that I don't completely despise, even though I don't like him in the slightest, and he was definitely annoying at times. But you have that, then you have the pod racing sequence and diving into Anakin. All really interesting stuff for that first hour that I really enjoyed. And then we leave Tatooine, and we go to Coruscant, and we have political drama. Because that's all we want in our Star Wars movie. And by political drama, I don't mean like a thrilling political deep dive. I mean, like, we're sitting there in courtrooms, or like the big place where the committee meets, and we're like, we need to stop the Trade Federation. And I don't care about that plot anyways, because it's just really dumb. And we just slow the movie from being like the super fast-paced, entertaining watch to, like, just end. I just kind of want it to end. And it lasts way too long. This movie is like 2.5 hours, which is pretty crazy. So it completely loses me there, but the Phantom Menace always finds a way to win me back with the Duel of the Fates fight, of course, because the fight with Darth Maul, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Obi-Wan is an all-timer inside of this franchise. Of course, you have the stuff with Jar Jar being dumb that just takes away from it all, but once you get the lightsaber battle with emotions, with stakes, seeing this really cool character of Darth Maul. As soon as, as quickly as the movie took me out of it with, the political stuff, it draws me back in with how good that fight sequence is. So, The Phantom Menace has several things I love, but at the same time, it definitely has pacing issues. The dialogue in the prequels themselves it isn't good. The dialogue is awful in these prequels. So, there's that issue in and of itself. But, overall, there are a lot of things I love. There are also a lot of things in The Phantom Menace I hate. Number 9, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. Don't worry, I know what you're thinking. Oh, when's he gonna put The Rise of Skywalker? It might already be too high already. I don't hate The Rise of Skywalker, okay? I said these movies get 3 stars or more, and that's Solo, Episode 1, and The Rise of Skywalker, okay? I don't like this movie necessarily, I just don't hate it. And here's another hot take, is I think the Disney trilogy is my personal favorite trilogy in this franchise, and I'm going to get shot for this opinion, but that's my personal opinion, just because I like the directors involved, I like the cinematography, and especially Kylo Ren, I think, is one of the best villains in all Star Wars. And we'll start with him, is I think Kylo Ren's character arc was actually really compelling and really good throughout this entire trilogy, and I thought it came to a head really compelling in this film. You got his battle with Rey. I think the fact that you have a villain who wants to be on the dark side is awesome. It's a very good idea, and I think that scene, especially the movie was okay up to the scene on the waves, the fight between Rey and Kylo. That movie, that scene is awesome for me, and it caps off with Han Solo coming back and bringing his son Ben into the light, and having Kylo completely switch. And a lot of people hate on that. I actually think it's pretty compelling and pretty emotional. There are some good emotions here, specifically with C-3PO, who's not my favorite character, but he was actually really funny in here and actually had a ton of emotions. This film is very fast-paced as well. There's a ton of action sequences. There's not really time to sit back and get bored in this movie, for better or for worse. I mean, how fast-paced it is. We introduce certain characters that we're supposed to care about, and we just don't because they're just kind of thrown in there. But there's some cool action sequences. It's fast-paced. It's not boring. And overall, I was satisfied with the way Ben Solo's arc came to a head. And overall, the overall trilogy. It's incredibly stupid to bring back Emperor Palpatine, by the way. Why would we do that? You're setting up this whole trilogy with Kylo Ren as a villain. Why not just let him be the villain? It's super easy fix. Remove Palpatine. Kylo Ren is searching for this area. He finds this big fleet. He raises them up from the ground and builds up the Empire. They don't have to be dead soldiers or anything. Just raises up the Empire. They're going to have a big battle. Ben Solo finally comes out and he decides that he's done being Kylo Ren. He helps the rebels fix his own mistake. That's not perfect, but it's more compelling than Palpatine returns out of absolutely nowhere. Dumb. That is unbelievably dumb. And the fact that they looked at that and said it was a good idea, bizarre. So Palpatine, I like how it ends. I think Palpatine's death in this movie is much better than his death in Return of the Jedi. But there's a flaw putting him in the movie to begin with, because it doesn't fit the rest of the trilogy. Plus, we're constantly creating new roles for our characters. There's they can have lightsaber battles when they're not even in the same room. And at the end of the movie, they're taking the lightsaber and putting it behind the back, and he's reaching for it somewhere and getting it. It makes no sense. It's unbelievably dumb. But the script is terrible. But there's enough here to enjoy to where I don't completely hate The Rise of Skywalker like a lot of you. And I think a big reason for that is I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan like some of you are. Even though during this rewatch I've learned to really like Star Wars. Number 8, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Now, to be very clear, these next 3 movies, I believe, are 3.5 stars. So I gave The Rise of Skywalker 3, starting at Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. I give it 3.5. This film has some of the best action inside of this entire franchise. Whether you get Obi-Wan and him trying to figure out what's going on with the clones, and you get that awesome fight against Jango Fett. Really cool fight, really fun sequence there. Or you get the third act, where you get in the arena and the whole Colosseum fight, which is a lot of fun. And then overall, like when the clones fly down and you get them led by Yoda, it's just kind of hype moments. And it's hype moments that I fall for. And so you just have some really good action, really good lightsaber duels. I get a lot of people have issue that Yoda fights Count Dooku in this movie, but I think it's actually really cool, and I always enjoy watching Yoda do cool things instead of, just be the old guy in The Empire Strikes Back. Now, obviously, he's great in The Empire Strikes Back. Like, the best part of that movie, we'll talk about that way higher on the list, but I did enjoy seeing him do all that. So, overall, best action in this franchise. It's also one of the films that I was the most entertained by, despite all of the flaws it has. I also think the story of this film is also quite compelling. Like, how did the clones come together? Sets up the big clone war for, obviously the animated show, but also setting up episode 3. So a lot of things I found really compelling, and a lot of it's all dragged down by the romance of Padme and Anakin, which is just... It's awful. It's bad. You get Obi-Wan having these conversations, really unique. We're getting some reveals, and then you turn back to Anakin saying, I don't like sand. It's scratchy, and it hurts my bum, or whatever he says in that movie. But, the romance is just really bad, and he's acting really creepy towards her, and she doesn't like him, until he goes and murders them all, including the kids and the women, too, and then she falls for him? What? It's just the worst written romance I have ever seen, and it definitely takes away from this film. But overall, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, is always, it's a guilty pleasure for me after watching it, and it's gonna go up in the number 8 spot. Number 7, Return of the Jedi. This is quite like The Rise of Skywalker, and I know that people are going to shoot me for having that opinion, but it's a lot like The Rise of Skywalker for me. Return of the Jedi is overall a satisfying conclusion with a few flaws. Everything with Vader and Luke is absolutely awesome. This is the first time that I'm talking about Luke Skywalker in this video, because it's the first movie with him in it, and he's just a really compelling character. And seeing Luke Skywalker fight so hard for his father, to save his father from the dark side, is just a really compelling arc for both of those characters, and every sequence with them in it is awesome. On the ship, the final battle between Vader and Luke is pretty great, and the turn to the light side by Vader is really compelling, even though I think it's really goofy and definitely takes from the movie. How Palpatine gets defeated by Vader picking him up and throwing him down. It's just I'm gonna kill you now, and okay. That's kind of it was kind of too quick of a turn for me. But you have all that, which is great. It also leaves you satisfied. You finally see the Empire get defeated. There's quite a few good action sequences. A lot of people like the opening on Tatooine. I think it's good. I don't love it, but it is quite good, obviously. And I also don't hate the Ewok stuff. I will say the middle of the movie does quite drag a bit when we're just hanging out with the Ewoks doing nothing. And the third act of the film, as much as I love the stuff with Vader and Luke, I think, the whole battle and, the Ewoks against the Empire is a little bit goofy and kind of mind-numbing to a point to where it was kind of, I'm not going to say hard to focus, but, it's just a bunch of CGI stuff happening that's not the most compelling and is easily the least compelling. Well, I wouldn't say the least compelling. It's one of the least compelling out of the third acts in the original trilogy. But overall, I left satisfied. I love seeing Luke and Vader's relationship, so Return of the Jedi is a good end to the original trilogy. Number 6, just squeezed out of our top 5, is Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Now, the highs of this movie are excellent. The highs of this movie are some of the best stuff in all of Star Wars. We start out with a great 30-minute sequence where we're rescuing Palpatine, we are fighting Count Dooku, and it's great. It's got all these individual moving pieces, it's got comedy, it's got just cool set pieces, and a really good lightsaber duel between Count Dooku and Anakin, ending with, obviously, Anakin killing Count Dooku, which was a very compelling, arc there. So, like, just a phenomenal start to the movie. And then I even like the stuff on the planet where Obi-Wan fights General Grievous. I even really enjoy all that. I know a lot of people don't, but I think General Grievous is a cool character, and I think there is some cool action to be held there. I'm like I said with the episode 2, I'm a sucker for just CGI big action sequences, even though when I said, like, the finale in Return of the Jedi wasn't all that good with the CGI action sequences, I think, like, the lightsaber duels are particularly good in this movie. And then, obviously, like, the third act, like, obviously, it's great. Anakin's turn to the dark side, having Obi-Wan fight Anakin, has all these deep emotions for the movie, and just ends with, like, just this awesome lightsaber battle, and iconic moments, but also, like, very, very thematically deep moments as you see Obi-Wan have to kill his apprentice as he turns to the dark side, and just a very heartbreaking and phenomenal end to this film, and the whole lightsaber battle is great. I will say Anakin's turn to the dark side, a little rushed for me. He definitely goes to the Jedi. He's like, yo, Palpatine's bad. And then he kills Mace Windu when he's fighting Palpatine. And all of a sudden, Anakin is bad and he's working for Palpatine. And it's just like, 3 seconds ago, you literally just snitched on Palpatine and we're trying to get him, like, killed. Like, why the sudden switch up? And it doesn't quite make sense, and, like, instantly, after helping the Jedi try to stop Palpatine, and then instantly becoming the dark side, like, 3 seconds later, he's killing kids. Like, it's just such a fast switch up for me. That definitely takes away a chunk of, like, the emotional weight there for me, but it always comes back. It always comes back in that final fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin, which is just some of the best stuff this franchise has ever had. We have now reached the top 5. And I just want to be very clear, these next 4 movies I gave 4 stars or higher, and then my number 1 is 4.5 stars. With that said, again, tell me your ranking in the comment section. Subscribe, and please don't unsubscribe when you find out what is in my top 5. With that said, number 5, here we go. Star Wars: The Last Jedi. I know, a lot of people hate this movie. It's the movie that when I have conversations with people in my life and I tell them I love this movie, it's the movie that starts the biggest arguments. I'm sorry, I love The Last Jedi. Even though the first 90 minutes are incredibly boring. Yes, that is correct. The first 90 minutes are awful. You get, like, you get Finn and Rose going to the one planet, and we're like, we gotta free the horses and the slaves, and they're doing that, and it's just really boring. Or you get the blatant character assassination of Luke Skywalker, where, like, the explanation for why that happened doesn't quite even up. It doesn't work. It's boring. But then you get the throne room sequence, and that's when the movie flips around. That's when the movie has awesome character moments, the biggest aura moments, the biggest hype moments of this franchise, and just the moments that I love. So let's start with the throne room sequence, where it's just one of the best action sequences in this entire franchise. And again, Kylo Ren, such a compelling villain. You get the fight between, them fighting the throne room sequence. Kylo Ren, you think he's turning to the right side, and he is not. He's trying to get Rey to turn to his side. And I get, like, a lot of people complain that there's too many subversions of expectations. I love subversions of expectations, so the fact that I had no idea whatsoever what this film was going to do next the first time I watched it, like, it still shocks me to this day. Like, Snoke's death is awesome. Again, the fight sequence in the throne room is great. And then you get, like, the stuff with Captain Phasma and, Finn, Rose, Poe Dameron, awesome stuff there. And then you get the stuff on the that one planet that they go to at the end of the movie, which is great, where Kylo Ren desperately trying to kill the rebels, and you feel, like, the stakes and the weight of it all happening. And then you get Luke Skywalker showing up, and a lot of people complain that he's a Force, that he's using the Force. I didn't really mind it because it's just such a cool fight. So many emotions. He's like, I'm sorry, I failed you. Just some great stuff. You see Rey finally learning how to use the Force, saving the rebels. So you feel the stakes. You have the best action in this franchise. It just does a complete 180 from the first 90 minutes that are incredibly boring to the last hour, which is so thrilling and filled with some of the best stuff this entire franchise has to offer. And that's why I love this movie. No matter how many times I watch it and am bored by the first 90 minutes, I am alive by the finale of the movie, and this realizes why I love this movie and why it works for me. I know a lot of people say, how can you love this movie if it blatantly kills Luke's character? Well, I think it's kind of fixed in the back half of the film where he apologizes to Ben and realizes he was in the wrong. Like, I think that character moment is great. And a lot of people find flaws in that, and that's understandable. Again, like I've said numerous times throughout this video, I am not the biggest Star Wars fan. I did not grow up with this franchise. So I forgive it because of how fantastic the last act of this movie is. Number 4, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. Out of all of the Star Wars films, this was the one that I was most excited to finally get to check out. Because, I love Gareth Edwards. He's one of my favorite directors working today. Obviously, he did Godzilla from 2014, which is really good. He did The Creator, which was one of my favorite movies of 2023. And even though his Jurassic World movie wasn't that good, I was still very excited because he knows how to build stakes. He knows how to make the scale look big. And bringing that to Star Wars for a story this big is great. It's a story that, on the surface, do we really need a movie about how the rebels got the plans for A New Hope? That's how our characters destroyed the Death Star. On the surface, you'd say no. And it does it so compelling that you gotta love it. One thing I loved about this movie was how it shows war, the casualties of war. No movie in this franchise shows you the death and destruction in this light as much as this movie does. It feels like a war movie, and part of that is the fact that our characters all die by the end. They sacrifice themselves for the greater good. And it's just so interesting that we see how big this war between the Empire and the Rebellion was. And it's great. It's emotional. I also love how it puts some humanity into the rebels, where they're not just the heroes. It shows that they have to do bad things for their cause, too. And that I thought was very interesting. They're not, the greatest people on the planet. It's really compelling, and you get Cassian Andor, who's just an incredibly compelling character. I would totally watch 2 seasons of television with him in it. Just kidding. I'm 7 episodes into season 1 on my rewatch. I actually used to hate that show. Now I've kind of falling in love with it because I've definitely matured. Anyways, I'm going to have a review of Andor once I watch it because I want to talk about it. And that here's not the video for it. But Andor, just a very compelling character. You got his robot, I think K2 is what he's called. I could be mistaken. Hilarious. Voiced by Alan Tuck. And just hilarious. The funniest character in all of Star Wars. But also has some good emotional moments. There's some phenomenal action in here. Again, Gareth Edwards knows how to shoot big stuff. So the Death Star, every explosion feels massive, rocks you to your core. It's great stuff. And so the entire third act, filled with emotions, filled with hype moments, filled with victory, but defeat. And then you get that awesome sequence with Vader in it. That is pretty awesome as well. Maybe there's a little too many pacing issues here. The first hour of the film is paced in such a weird way. I didn't mind it, but definitely a little weirdly paced. And then we get the character of Jyn Erso, who I don't think is all that compelling, in her relationship with her dad wasn't all that compelling to me. But besides that, Rogue One completely won me over. Get it? Rogue One won me over. Again, I my most anticipated movie during this entire rewatch to watch, and it did not disappoint. Top 3 time with The Empire Strikes Back. I don't love this movie. I've always the first time I watched it, I thought it was incredibly boring, and it was one of my least favorite movies of this franchise. It definitely won me over on rewatch. Again, I don't love it. I don't think the original Star Wars or The Empire Strikes Back are 2 of the greatest films ever made, like a lot of people say. I think they're very good. I just don't think they're that phenomenal. But this movie is really good. Like, it is. The stuff on the planet with Yoda is really great. The conversations between Luke and Yoda, very good. Have some very deep emotion to them. And really, once you think about, like, they didn't have, when this movie first came out, they didn't have episode 1, episode 2, episode 3 to introduce you to this world. This was their introduction to the Force and to all of this stuff. Obviously, you got the first Star Wars, but this is a movie where we fully dive into what the Jedi are, and it's just incredibly compelling. And then you get the fun stuff with Han, Leia, C-3PO, Chewbacca, just some awesome, fun stuff in the middle of this movie. You get introduced to Lando, who's just this really cool character. But the thing I love most about this movie is how, obviously, this is the first time that Luke and Vader meet. And so you get those deep, the deep emotions, the deep feelings, and you get, finally, like, the stakes. He killed Obi-Wan in or in the first Star Wars movie, and so you're kind of ramping up to, like, this big fight. And once you get it, it's just so good, revealing that Vader is Luke's father. Like, just this masterpiece of a twist. In fact, I think if, like, you didn't keep cutting back to Han and Leia running around, or Leia and Lando running around and shooting clone troopers, or stormtroopers, sorry, I think that, like, it would be the best third act in all of Star Wars, with, like, that final fight between Luke and Vader, and it ramps up perfectly. Again, there are some pacing issues. It moves a little too slow for me at times, for me to be, like, fully over the moon happy about this one. But The Empire Strikes Back, one thing I love is that it definitely shows, despite there being victory, that the Empire has won in this movie, and you feel how bad this Empire is. And that's what I love. And overall, as a trilogy, Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi is one of the greatest trilogies ever made. It is done very effectively. My runner-up is Star Wars, the original. Again, gonna get a lot of hate for this. It's just my opinion. It's the runner-up. And this one I just find to be a really fun movie. Like, you get, obviously, the introduction to this world. Again, if you were born back in that time and you were able to see this when it first came out, this was your introduction. So introducing you to the Force, to the Jedi, to the Empire, to all of this stuff is really compelling. And despite the first 30 minutes, I think, with C-3PO and R2 running around being incredibly boring, as soon as we meet Luke and as soon as we meet Obi-Wan, it is really, really compelling and some of the best stuff this entire franchise has ever done. And then you get, like, just the overall adventure. The adventure of it. It's just a big adventure. Saving the princess. It's not like stopping the Empire or destroying it until the third act. It's saving the princess. And the stuff with Han, when we meet Han, is just absolutely awesome. And obviously, he's one of the greatest characters ever put to screen. Harrison Ford puts so much life into him, and he's so funny and just fun to be around. And so you get his relationship with Leia that is just fun. So all this stuff on that planet, or on the Death Star, is really fun. That's the word I would use. And then you get the awesome fight between Obi-Wan and Vader, resulting in Obi-Wan's demise, which can be really emotional and really effective. I think the third act, destroying the Death Star, isn't the most compelling third act in all of Star Wars. Like, kind of loses a bit of steam from just being this fun adventure to, oh, we're stopping the Empire now. Loses a little bit of steam in the third act for me, but overall, introducing you to these characters, this world, this is one of the most fun Star Wars movies. But my number one is Star Wars The Force Awakens. I know. I'm bad, but at least I know I'm bad, so that makes me a little bit better, right? Family Guy reference. Anyway, Star Wars The Force Awakens is awesome. It's 4.5 stars. It's by far my favorite movie of this franchise. It's sick. Directed by J.J. Abrams, who just loves to give you these roller coaster rides. It starts off with, like, a bang. And instantly from the start, I'm like, oh, I'm going to love this. Where Poe Dameron, like, the first thing that we see Kylo Ren do is Poe Dameron shoots a laser at him, and he stops it with the Force. awesome stuff, right? Like it's actually awesome, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to love this. And you see how bad this new order can really be as they destroy that whole village. Rey, I don't think, is the most compelling character. Finn in this movie, as much as I like him in the other movies, he just yells in this movie a lot, which is a little bit annoying. But Poe Dameron is by far his best in this movie, and just an incredibly compelling character. Obviously, we get Han and Chewbacca back, which is great. And this is the first Star Wars movie, and the only Star Wars movie that I really felt deep emotions seeing Han, my favorite character in this entire franchise, die. And I knew it was going to happen, because I've seen this movie before, but still, it works for me. It introduces us to Kylo Ren, who's just this awesome, awesome villain, as a guy who wants to so bad to be on the dark side of the Force, obviously because he was betrayed by the bright side, and so he tries to be on the dark side. Just such this compelling villain. All of the lightsaber fights are great. The Finn and Kylo one is awesome, but then you get Rey fighting Kylo, which is really good as well. All the jet wing stuff, all the flying shooting sequences are awesome. It's just a roller coaster ride filled to the brim with action. Introducing us to Snoke was really interesting. Definitely feels like we had a plan. By The Rise of Skywalker, it completely ditches it, but it's because The Last Jedi wants to subvert your expectations so much, which I find really compelling, and that's why I love The Last Jedi as well. But you have all of these cool action sequences, all of this vibrantly shot stuff. It's awesome. Like, The Force Awakens has some of the most exciting stuff in all of Star Wars, some of the deepest emotions. I'm not the biggest fan of Rey learning how to use the Force. Like, it just kind of just happens all of a sudden. It feels like we're missing 15 minutes here in the middle of the movie, but that's alright, because all of the action, all of the stuff, all the character moments for this film definitely work for me. And that's why Star Wars The Force Awakens is my favorite Star Wars film. Alright, that's it. That's 12 Star Wars movies ranked. I gotta edit this thing. It's gonna be fun. But thank you guys for watching this video. Stay tuned for every May movie I saw ranked. And with that said, subscribe.